able to innovate very quickly. So when the COVID crisis struck 2 years ago, with Christos Xenofontos and other colleagues from various committees, and Jose Manuel from the same committee in particular, we were able to set up a team and to share knowledge in a crisis mode with all road operators across the globe. And I invite everyone to check this report that we published recently. How we identify and disseminate innovation is also a very relevant question. So innovation is a very nice word to hear and to talk about, but in practice, how does it work? We exchange knowledge. Our experts identify innovations across the globe and they share their own innovation. So it really helps everyone gain time and innovate more quickly, and also discuss, create new ideas. Those ideas are then published in reports that can be accessible to everyone for free, usually. We also update our plan of activity. Here in orange, I have highlighted Committee 1.1 on performance of transport administrations, of course, as well as recent or new groups, committees that we have created on road design standards, on electric road systems, on well-prepared projects, which will now focus on low middle income countries, and on new mobility and their impact on road infrastructure and transport. So we are now creating groups whenever we need them. We do more. In some cases, we realize that our committees are not truly equipped to handle one particular question. A report we published some years ago on drones is a really good example, and it has really helped some road operators, I'm thinking of the US in particular, realize that drones were a really good way to tackle a certain number of specific issues and that they were cost effective and very, very efficient. The new ones that we're developing this year will tackle the road sector's contribution to carbon neutrality, and as well as equity and accessibility. And those projects are contracted out. So this is also another way through which we promote innovation. At the level of the organization, at the PIARC level, we also innovate. We now want to promote gender inclusion and diversity throughout our activities. And we also want to work even more with low and middle income countries through different methods, maybe including targeted promotion towards these countries and making more references to previous reports that may be sometimes, in some cases, more relevant for them. We are now starting our work on our next plan of activities, which will identify what are the cross-cutting issues we will need to be working on, and we'll also identify what are going to be the new committees and their terms of reference. This work is starting, and we will report to our General Assembly later this year. And input from everyone is welcome. So if you want to share ideas during this workshop or during this committee meeting, please start making notes. And I will conclude by inviting everyone to save the date for our next major knowledge sharing opportunity, which is going to be the 27th World Road Congress, which will take place in Prague in the Czech Republic in October 2023. And if you want to share your innovation, wherever you are very welcome to prepare an abstract and submit it in answer to our international call for papers, which we will publish about a month from now. Thank you very much. Christos, back to you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Miguel. Again, for us as the technical committee 1.1 on the performance of transport administration, one of the things that emerged as a clear common trend among the three working groups in our committee was really innovation, and how innovation at the same time is one of PIARC's cross-cutting issues. It's a presentation that we had actually started preparing for the midterm meeting of the association that took place remotely. Jose Manuel Blanco Secara, our Spanish secretary and previous chair of the committee, and Jonathan Spear worked together with me to put this together. As we are going through the different presentations today, we want to ask the audience to consider some of these amplifying questions. Why is innovation important to your organization? How is your organization handling and approaching the idea of innovation right now? In other words, what is your agency doing on innovation? What questions are you looking to answer through innovation? And how do you encourage innovation in your work? The other part is, can innovation help foster cooperation between different units and sections, like in, we say silos on your organization, and we have a lot of silos of excellence in my organization, but so can innovation really help bring these silos together? And very importantly, which is one of the things we're going to be talking a lot about today, is how do you capture, how do you document, and how do you disseminate innovation? Because if innovation only happens once and it's not replicated and it's not spread, then we really have not achieved a lot. So what is innovation for a public organization? For us, it's the tool to imagine and create our own future, right? So it's the creative process, and this actually comes from some of our friends at Harvard, by which a public organization develops or improves a service or product by applying new processes, introducing new techniques, or adopting new ideas to create public value and deliver services more efficiently, more equitably, and with higher quality. And one of the reasons, the main reason, is why do we need to innovate? It's because staying the same is no longer an option. And if we didn't know that before the pandemic and before the current war in Ukraine, we definitely know that now that staying the same is no longer an option, and the need to continue to innovate, it's even more important. The challenges and external forces that transport administrations are facing are increasingly more complex. Expectations are heightened, especially under the current situation, and we need to deliver services to our society as efficiently, equitably, and with the highest quality as possible, which leads us to public value. So Patrick has already covered, why innovation is one of the 4 key cross-cutting issues in the 2020-23 strategic plan, and how it fits into the overall activities of the committees. But one of the main things, and this is really goes to the heart of PIARC. PIARC brings together a lot of experts that we work through a 4-year cycle to produce a lot of knowledge and a lot of reports. And in these reports and in these deliverables that we produce, they are actually filled with, great innovation. And the best way to share innovation, it's actually through knowledge exchange. It's really at the core of the work products of PIARC. In the previous seminar that we have run in Seville, we actually had one of our friends at the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, Professor Mark Fagan, who gave a presentation on the fundamentals of organizational innovation. I included that here, basically because to give you the link to access his presentation, but also to encourage everybody to go to the recording that is available on PIARC's YouTube and PIARC's website of the previous workshop on innovation, and to watch the entire proceedings. With that, I want to thank everyone, and I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to move the presentation along. And I'm going to, since I have the floor, I'll do the introductions, Jonathan. So Jonathan Spear, he is a transport policy and strategy advisor with 26 years experience in policy, strategy, governance, and capacity building. And he has worked extensively in the international arena and been based in London, Dubai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Singapore. He's increasingly interested in the strategic implications of new transport technologies, with recent focus on micromobility, autonomous and electric vehicles, urban-air mobility, and transport net zero. In addition to his many accolades, he's actually currently leading the work on disruptive technologies and service models for Working Group 2 of our technical committee. Jonathan, all yours. That's working. Okay, we're just waiting for the presentation to switch over. Okay, so I think that's on the screen. Excellent. Thanks for the opportunity to talk at this workshop in Warsaw this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce. Hang on, is the screen being shared? Yes. Okay, we're back to the screen. Okay, so I'm going to kick off after Christoph's this afternoon's workshop by really talking about some fundamental concepts, things that you might want to think about as we're running through the other presentations and contributions from the other speakers this afternoon. Really to draw a higher level overview of what innovation is and some of the different aspects of innovation. Next slide, please. So, but the journey for this technical committee to innovation in the current cycle basically started in the previous PIARC cycle, 2016 to 2019, around the topic of change management. And what we were looking at in the previous technical committee are the key drivers for change that road and transport agencies are facing, and also coming up with concepts, models, and recommendations of how to respond, anticipate, and to drive those changes through the organizations. Through that report and that analysis, one of the key conclusions was that technology in particular, and by technology I include kind of data, analytical methods, more advanced ways of kind of doing the same thing, were basically becoming very much kind of more important and a driver for transport administrations over the next 10 to 20 years. And we really wanted to, in the current cycle, kind of lift that out and say, particularly around technology and the service models and the operating models through which technology is actually deployed and applied, how transport agencies would respond to those technologies and how they would shape those technologies moving forward. So the road to innovation actually started through change management in the last cycle. Next slide, please. I think Christoph has already introduced a little bit of this already. The fundamental problem that we face is that transport agencies, including the Roads General Directorate here in Poland, but across Europe and other countries, are facing increasingly complex and difficult challenges. Some commentators have referred to wicked problems, and a wicked problem is basically a problem that has no obvious solution. There may be limited data for how you derive a solution, and there may be sharply differing views of what that solution should be. So many of the problems that transport agencies face are increasingly wicked in the sense of we may not have a solution off the shelf. And COVID-19 has been mentioned, the war in Ukraine has been mentioned, but this underlying issue of technological change and development is certainly one of those. So doing nothing or staying the same is not an option for anyone. And if, I mean, just to use a parallel, if you quote the former chief executive of Nokia, Nokia used to dominate the mobile phones market about 10 years ago, something like that. But they got overtaken by companies like Samsung and Apple. And the former leader of Nokia said, we didn't.
Prezes powiedział Nokii, my nic złego.
Our hands, we didn't innovate, we didn't change as fast as the world around us and as much as the competition around us. So you can do everything right, but if you don't actually respond to a changing world around you, then you may end up basically in trouble. And that really needs to drive your focus, your purpose of the organization, the strategies that you deploy. And we have a fundamental hypothesis here, which we can debate this afternoon, those organizations which innovate in a comprehensive manner, but flexibly, will understand and will meet the expectations of their customers and society, which themselves are changing all the time. Those organizations which don't and fail to innovate may not meet their objectives, may have unforeseen impacts, and ultimately be overtaken and become irrelevant, like Nokia. I mean, Nokia is still around, but it certainly has nowhere near the market share and economic strength that it had maybe 10 years ago. So it is basically adapt or die in that sense. Next slide, please. So what is innovation? Well, Christos did describe kind of one definition. There are some additional definitions on the slide here, particularly around this practical implementation of new ideas, new goods, new services, a changed entity or form of organization, a new way of redistributing or realizing value, developing new products and services, an idea, an object that is perceived as being new by society, by organizations, by individuals. There's lots of definitions out there. The common thread basically is this idea of new, that it's different from what's come before. It is in some way an improvement. It's faster, it's more accurate, it's more accessible. So it's an improvement in some way. And it's also about ideas and how those ideas are spread and disseminated and passed on and indeed implemented. I started talking about technology and high-tech solutions, and often when people talk about innovation, they think of technology, and they often think of potentially complex, expensive, high-profile and expensive products and services. It can be, but also innovation can be literally small ideas, hundreds of them, that everyone in an organization comes up with to solve practical problems every day. Some people have talked about what they call brilliant basics. So this is like everyday innovation that you just do every day. You might not even think of it as innovation, but you are finding a different way to solve the problems that you encounter or your customers encounter, and basically finding workarounds to get the job done. And that's why innovation is as much about attitudes, values, behaviors, as it is about a particular technology, a particular product, and also those values and behaviors, and I'll come back to this, change across the generations. So we talk about, generation Y, generation Z. I think we're up to generation alpha or beta moving forward. They all have different values. They all have different ideas of what innovation is and how to respond to it. So next slide, please. So just going on to what is innovation. This is, and I have to give credit to Mark, who's going to present, I think, kind of after this. This is not innovation. So this is, we'll recognize this. This is basically the motor car, the motor vehicle. We've got the Ford Model T, over a century old, and we've got a brand new Nissan Patrol, latest SUV that you can buy. Fundamentally, they are the same thing. They all both have an internal combustion engine, and they are both driven by a human driver. And they are basically the same concept in terms of the product and the service that is delivered to the customer. So for all the whistles and bells and IT and electronics that's gone in, it's fundamentally the same thing. So some people will say that's not actually innovation. Next slide, please. This is innovation. This is actually saying in future, it's not going to be an internal combustion engine. It's going to be an electric motor and a battery, or it might be a hydrogen fuel cell. So we're going to change the energy source, and we're going to move away from the idea that it's driven by a human driver, because in future, autonomous vehicles, robo-taxis, whatever you want to call them, may be driven by a computer or a connection of a computer in the car with sensors, processors,
and the transmission of technology between the car and the infrastructure that is carrying it. So over the next 10 to 20 years, some people would say we are actually going to see the first real innovation of the motor car that we have seen in more than a century moving forward. Next slide, please. And when you go to what is so-called level 5 autonomy, I think people are familiar with the levels of autonomy. Level 5 is a fully driverless car or a fully driverless vehicle, which does not have a steering wheel, does not have any manual controls, potentially. But if you don't need to drive the car, you don't need to design the car around all those driving controls and how you use the space within it. So as this slide shows, you can actually start to do new things with the car, where you might actually, you might use it to get from A to B, but you can also sleep whilst you're getting from A to B. So it's like a kind of hotel on wheels. Just a thought to dwell on. Next slide, please. So when we talk about innovation, sometimes we classify them into how new they are, how radically different they are from existing technologies, and what's the impact on whatever market you happen to be looking at. So are they incremental? They're changing things just a little bit from what we have at the moment. So we're adding a new type of LED screen on a mobile phone, for example. Are they doing things a lot better? So in railways, when you go from conventional rail to high-speed rail, for example, or maglev or something like that? Or are they much more disruptive or much more radical because really they are fundamentally rethinking that product and what it offers to the customer and to society and others kind of moving forward? So you have radical, which is doing new things. So Tesla was way ahead of everyone else in terms of electric vehicles, for example. Now the rest of the automotive industry is catching up. Or do you do truly disruptive, which is doing new things which make the old things obsolete? So you're inventing a new market, or you're disrupting the existing market to such an extent that the old ways of doing things no longer work. And the replacement of Blockbuster by Netflix, for example, where you're going from video rental to streaming over the internet, is a fundamentally different example of that, or some of the concepts around mobility as a service, autonomous vehicles, and so on, could be truly disruptive moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is what we're working on in working group 2 of the technical committee. So innovation can be technology, as I said at the beginning. It can be autonomous vehicles, it can be electric, it can be micromobility. Lots of micromobility in Warsaw, I've seen, kind of this coming here for the first time in about 20 years. You can be looking at digital highways, next generation intelligent transport systems. We were talking about ITS this morning. Are we going up in the air? Urban air mobility, passenger drones, those sorts of things. So innovation can be technology, and the data and the systems and the processes and the sensors that drive all of that technology. Next slide, please. But it can also be process. So how do you think about a problem? How do you solve a problem? So this is a combination of something called design thinking, overlaid on another concept called double diamond, which is basically just a structured way of solving a problem, of defining what the problem is, brainstorming ideas about how you solve it, long list of options, then assessing those options, zooming in on a short list, and then coming up with new proposals for how you will implement that solution moving forward. So you diverge in terms of your thinking, and then you converge on a particular view of the problem, and then you diverge on the solutions, and then you converge on a particular solution moving forward. So it's a structured way of solving a problem, and in potentially thinking about innovation to do that. Next slide, please. This is a similar example. This is called the innovation funnel. You may have, again, you're looking at what the problem is you're trying to solve. You brainstorm, you may come up with literally hundreds of ideas of how you may solve that problem. And then you develop them in a bit more detail. You try and define them more precisely. You evaluate them in terms of the impact, in terms of the practicality, in terms of the cost. And then you come up maybe with an approved firm proposal at the end of the funnel. So you might start with hundreds of ideas to come up with one idea that you're actually going to run with in terms of implementation, which you know or you're confident that is actually going to solve the problem. So again, it's a structured way of thinking about how you go through an innovation process. Next slide, please. Innovation can be an event. So your processes you can actually do through an event like a hackathon, brainstorming session, different ways of doing it. Next slide, please. And that event or that process can actually be linked to a facility or a place. So we were talking, for example, this morning about research and development facilities and the materials lab that you have here in Poland. This is an example actually from the company I work for on the left here. We call it a lava lab, and it's about bringing in digital systems and data, virtual reality, linking different points. We're actually going to have 3 of them in Bangalore, London and Montreal, where they all network together and they allow us to bring technical experts together virtually in the same space, look at the same model in 3D virtually, and really kind of innovate how we might solve the design problem. So the point is, those processes, those events can take place in a particular location, a particular facility. Again, this is promoting innovation. How do you set that space up to brainstorm and to innovate and to think about things in a different way? Next slide. Moving towards the conclusion, of course, I think it's already been said this morning, innovation is also about people. You need innovative people. You need people who will think outside the box. You need people who will have those small ideas, those big ideas, and how do you encourage them, nurture them, identify them? Do you actually have an innovation position in your organization chart? Do you have an innovation department? So in the middle here, this is an example from Singapore. SMRT is one of the public transport operators in Singapore. They have a chief technology officer to drive technological innovation. Other organizations have a chief innovation officer that might have a slightly broader remit to do this job. Next slide, please. Of course, innovation can be a culture within the organization. So the man shown here, John Carter, has come up with various proposals for engendering a culture of innovation within the organization, having a sense of urgency, making connections within the organization, thinking about short wins rather than kind of long-term, more higher level concepts, certainly empowering people to act, and as I said at the beginning, having a diversity of people within your organization who will come up with those ideas, who will think differently. So if you employ the same identikit person within your organization, they will all come up with the same idea. If you employ different types of people, and whether that's gender, whether that's age, whether that's cultural background, income, however you define it, they will all have a different perspective, they all have different ideas, and you have a bigger gene pool, therefore, to come up with those ideas and really to kind of innovate and deliver for your customers. And of course, your customers are diverse as well, who have different needs, and you're matching, therefore, your customer base potentially. Next slide, please. So those things: technology, process, location, event, culture, attitude. You can have an attitude to innovation. Some organizations are very resistant to change and conservative. Some are more proactive and want to kind of do things differently. Nokia and Apple you know, the example I talked about before. You can bring all of that together in a what's called an innovation framework. So this is an example where I live at the moment in Dubai. The Roads and Transport Authority in Dubai has an innovation framework around what they want to achieve, what they want to focus on. They have pillars around governance, culture, skills and talent, processes, and so on. Next slide, please. Or you can bring it together in a particular application. So this is an example of how you might run a trial for an autonomous vehicle. And how do you set that up? You need to plan it, you need to prepare the conditions for the test, you need to run the test, and you need to report on it and understand what you learned from the test after it's finished. And those lessons in turn will inform the next test and may inform the technology cycle and the technological maturity kind of moving forward. So it's about combining technology, process, people, culture, all of this. Next slide, please. That may, of course, lead on to how you think about how you develop your organization. Some work from McKinsey about kind of principles of a future-ready organization. That's the slide on the right. But also, what job descriptions, what jobs do you have? And the jobs that you need to have in the future may not be the jobs you had in the past. So just think about that. Yeah, next slide, please. And then that leads us just on to what does the transport agency of the future kind of look like, including the roads directorate and the Ministry of Infrastructure in Poland. What do those organizations look like in 20 years' time? And how do you plan? And the planning needs to start now. Next slide, please. Very finally, Crystal said necessity is the mother of invention. We've seen that certainly during COVID-19 and the pandemic. Lots of examples of innovation, whether it's about maintaining frontline road operations whilst protecting workers, use of IT, digital technology, video conferencing. It's nice to see people in person, but you know, we've now got Teams, we've got Zoom, we've got all these things that we can use, and so on. So we've seen innovation during the pandemic. Some of that will outlast the pandemic moving forward. Next slide. So that's very briefly a whistle-stop tour, a very quick walk through some fundamental principles of innovation to make some sense of what's obviously sometimes quite a confusing, dazzling, complex, fast-moving area. Next slide. And just a thought to leave you with. You know, we need to find the time to innovate. I know we're sometimes concerned about the day job, but we need to maybe sit back sometimes and think about how we might do things a little bit better. Otherwise, we might miss something fairly obvious right in front of us. And I think that's the final slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. A lot really to digest on the fundamentals of innovation. So now we're actually going to move from some of the fundamentals of innovation to how to successfully implement innovation via architect, pilot, scale, improve, or APSI. Professor Mark Fagan, who's a lecturer in public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School, he has been a friend of my agency for quite a few years now. We have done some policy work together where we actually provide his students the opportunity to work with our office to develop real-life policy solutions for us. And he's been kind enough to provide us with a pre-recorded lecture that Maciek is going to start for us right now.
Welcome. I'm Mark Fagan. I'm on the faculty at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. There are two core challenges associated with innovation. One is the idea itself, and the second is successfully implementing the idea. The intent of this video is to focus on the latter. How do you ensure that the great idea you have actually gets put into place as you've envisioned it and generates the value that you anticipate? The structure that I'm going to propose you think about in order to do this comes from some work I've done with some colleagues at the Kennedy School, and we refer to it as successful implementation via APSI, Architect, Pilot, Scale, and Improve. No matter what the idea is and how innovative it is, it's going to come up against the classic pain of change. The classic curve you're seeing here, everyone's got very high expectations at the outset. As you go through the implementation, you realize it's really hard work and it's complex, and you typically go to the valley of despair. Unfortunately, a lot of innovations die right here, but those that are successfully implemented emerge back up to a much better place than we were before. And as they refer to here, the light at the end of the tunnel. So the intent of this framework is to enable you to ride the roller coaster and ensure that your uphill journey of greater performance is what emerges. The framework consists of 4 components. It's architect, in other words, design the program. Pilot it, because you should never implement without testing it out in a controlled environment. Perhaps the most challenging is then taking it to scale. And finally, once you've got it up and operating, looking to continuously improve the situation. The framework itself, you can see here, the architect, pilot, scale, and improve. The architect is defining the mechanics. Pilot enables you to prove the concept. Scaling allows you to broaden it to all the recipients. And of course, improving is making it better and increasing the value. There are a number of specific tools or concepts that can help make this successful. And we'll walk through each of those in a moment. Of course, whenever we're thinking about implementation, we've got to take 2 additional factors into account. One is change management. How do you get people to move in the direction you want? And then you got to manage the project. So let me walk you through these, and particularly the toolkit that you can use to execute this framework. So from an architect perspective, as I mentioned, it's develop and design the mechanics of how the project will actually be delivered. The goal, you want to deliver it so that it will maximize value. How will you know whether you get there? Well, did you reach the targeted customers? Was it within budget and time frame? Did it deliver for both the person delivering the service as well as those receiving it? In other words, did they get the satisfaction they were expecting? And did you enable so that you can successfully deliver throughout the life cycle, not just once, but through the life cycle of this program? Let me share with you a few tools of how I think about architecting. The first tool is the Osterwalder framework. It essentially comes out of the business world, and it's somewhat of a business planning model. Here's what I like about it. Right in the center, the heart of the matrix, is the value proposition. What is it that will generate a return on the resources that you're putting into this effort? Over here on the right, it's all about the customer. Who are the customer segments? What are the channels you use to reach them? How do you build relationships? If you get the customer side right, then you're going to have at least a strong foundation to work from. For us in the transportation space, think about a highway. The different customer segments may be local traffic, it may be delivery, it may be long haul. There's lots of different segments. How are you going to reach them? And how, at the end of the day, do you build relationships so the value that you're creating, they actually receive and recognize? The left-hand side is all about how do you get it done? What are the key activities that need to be done? What resources will it take? And who do you partner with? Again, in the transportation space, from a partnering perspective, we've been finding that public-private partnerships are a very effective way of essentially both sharing risk and sharing expertise between the public and private sectors. The bottom of the framework, it's all about the finances. How much money is it going to take to do it? And how much money have you got coming in? Now, again, this is more from a business perspective, but when you see revenue streams here, think about budgets. Where does the money come from and how will you use it? This is particularly helpful when you're looking at a comprehensive program that covers lots of customers and activities and resources. Even if you don't fill it out completely, it's a great set of prompts to make you think about, have I thought about my customer segments? Have I thought about how I might partner with others? A second architecture approach is that Ishikawa diagram, often called a fishbone. For the image, you can see why. It's very helpful in understanding the relationship between cause and effect, especially if there are multiple factors driving performance. Here you'll see on the right-hand side is the effect or the problem. In your case, it may well be the innovation you're trying to introduce. And the causes are, what are the things that have to happen in order for this effect to take place? And you want to think about it from a policy perspective, processes, people, the equipment you'll need, and how will you measure to know whether you're successful or not. You'll see here the thickness of the bones of the fish dictate the importance. So you'll have more primary causes with the darker lines and secondary causes with the lighter lines. A third tool in the architecture world is system dynamics. This is a very effective structure to both understand an issue or an opportunity, but also to enable you to see the interrelationships. There are very few initiatives we have that don't have a fair number of interrelationships. You put a new high occupancy lane in, it's going to have impacts not only on that particular road, but on adjacent roads as well. The idea behind system dynamics is it's particularly helpful when we talk about innovation, because it starts with the idea of a stock and a flow. The stock are the potential adopters of this innovation. The flow is them actually becoming adopters. And what you're trying to do is basically get people from the potential to the reality. It also, though, allows you to understand, well, what are the forces and factors that are going to influence it, the success of this effort? It's particularly helpful if there are nonlinearities or complexities. It also allows you to recognize that there are likely to be feedback loops and, as I mentioned, nonlinearities. What's particularly powerful about this is you can use it almost as a process map to understand the issue, but it also is a simulation model where you can load the numbers in, run a variety of different recipes to find the best recipe of actions or interventions that will generate that innovation being adopted. From the effective architecture of implementation, we need to move to a pilot. Here is where you're going to test the delivery of this architecture in a low-stakes environment to see what works and what doesn't. The goal here is to increase the success you have when you take it to scale. You'll know if you're successful in the pilot if your plans are realized from the perspective of those receiving the service and delivering the service. If you gain some insights for scaling, and hopefully the effort doesn't fail. A couple of tools here, probably the most popular is the Deming cycle, or PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. They view the pilot as a shakedown cruise for almost any policy or innovation that you're looking at. It's as much a philosophy as it is a tool. And you have to have an extraordinarily compelling argument not to do a pilot. In terms of the sequencing of pilots, here's how I like to think about it. I start number one with that which is relatively easy, it's doable. What I'm trying to do is to ensure that I can build some success and I can learn in a low consequence environment. From there, I want to expand the easy to make sure this really is scalable. And then I want to go to the toughest place and test it out, because that will dictate whether I will be sustainable or not. You may find there are times when you want pilots that need to address a range of environments. Maybe it's different customers, geographies, services, and you can overlay those ideas on the pilot as well. Scaling, well, this is often the most challenging part of implementation. It's delivering the program from a pilot to everyone who is intended to receive the benefits. The goal is to achieve the policy objectives planned for with the full audience. You'll know you got there as if all people are the intended receive the outcome. The services as it was originally envisioned, people are satisfied, and the benefits and costs are as projected. Remember back to our Osterwalder framework when we looked at the money coming in, the money going out. That's what we're looking at here as well. In terms of scaling, some things to think about. One tool that I like are called the 5 C's of scaling. What it says is that in order to be successful in scaling, you have to focus on the first C being cost. You have to have a cost-effective strategy. Number 2 is you have to have commitment both internally and externally. Internally within your own organization, externally with the others that will participate in this. You have to have capacity. Here, people often think about funds and resources. Don't forget expertise is critical as well. What you can do in a pilot, because you have the experts right there focused on it, may not be the same when you're trying to take it to scale. In terms of community, getting buy-in, the last thing in the world you want is a community resistance. And then culture. What really enables scaling to take place is that it not only your idea goes into place, but it sticks. It becomes part of the daily routine. This is something that you really want to think about. Certainly, if you're doing a flash cut, say it's a piece of technology to manage traffic flow, but it's also important even if you're doing a long period rollout. When we think about going to scale, I suspect most of you are familiar with the S-shaped curve. The S-shaped curve is the adoption curve for innovation. What you're looking at here is the time it takes to get people to adopt a new innovation. Here you can see electricity takes really almost 50 years to get to 100%. You can see the clothes washer and clothes dryer happened a lot faster. Look how quickly color TVs went in place. And of course, you're very familiar with cell phones and the internet, all coming more rapidly. The idea here that I want to share is you want to find ways to speed the adoption of your innovation, because what you're trying to do is build momentum. Momentum enables you to get that scaling to take place. This is particularly important where you're trying to generate some social proof. Let's say you're working on a shared ride mobility model. You can't let it drag forever. You need to get some excitement and let it build from there. I happen to be involved in the autonomous vehicle space. We are facing a very slow adoption curve, and we're looking to say, well, what can we do to compress it? The final component is improve. It is to continuously examine the delivery and to find and implement ways to improve. In other words, we really want to just create greater value from your innovation. The measures of success here, can you look at the change in value be it public value or private value over time? How satisfied are employees or customers? Are we getting a lot of suggestions from the people on the ground who are actually doing the work? What portion of those have been successfully implemented? And how broad does our service delivery team view their obligation to help improve? It should be very broad. A couple of ideas here. I suspect many of you are familiar with Kaizen. Comes out of the total quality movement effort. You know, it's good change. There's 6 steps to being able to do it. Again, Kaizen is more of a philosophy to all the time be looking for opportunities. They're not looking for dramatic change. They're looking for small changes that you can constantly put in place to make a big difference. Another continuous improvement strategy is referred to as a Gemba walk. The idea is you, the person learning, goes out to the floor or to watch the delivery, or literally sit at an interchange and watch the traffic flow. Your goal here is to observe, not to correct. It's to look and see where are there opportunities for increased value, and you do it with your own eyes and mostly your ears, listening to people talk about how they go about their job and what they think might work better. Sounds easy, hard to do. Those of us in the management ranks often figure, well, we know what's going on. We can tell you what to do. Reverse your thinking, you'll learn a lot. In terms of managing change here, you gotta understand that the human aspects of change and facilitate how you can make a sustained transformation. You want to make it easy for people to adapt and ensure change sticks. How do I know? Well, employee satisfaction, minimal resistance, no slippage, those are the things you're looking for. In terms of tools here, John Cotter's work has been a classic for a long time. It applies to almost anything. He starts by saying you create a sense of urgency, you build a guiding coalition, the opinion leaders, you form a strategic vision, you enlist volunteers, you enable, figure out what the barriers are, get rid of as many as you can, you generate some short-term wins, you use those to build, you institutionalize, and you keep going. Classic model. Another approach is Ron Heifetz at the Kennedy School's dance floor and balcony. He says, think about the leader needing to do 2 things. One is to be on the dance floor where you're part of the flow of what's happening while your innovation is taking place, but periodically walk up to the balcony and get the big picture of what's going on, then come back down to the dance floor. Almost any change involves people, and you got to understand how they think. The final step in this process is managing the project. This is the classic, understand the human aspects, get, again, something that's transformable, but it's very much, look, all you're trying to do is manage a project. And at this stage in the game, my guess is you're pretty darn good at that. So with this, I hope this gives you some ideas and insights for how you might want to implement and take to scale your next innovation. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Thank you.
Dziękujemy bardzo za to wystąpienie. Tak jak pan profesor powiedział, jeżeli będą pytania, można je skierować do niego mailem. O adres mailowy można zgłosić się również i do nas. Teraz kolejny prelegent, kolejna osoba, która wystąpi. Tym razem to będzie przedstawiciel Polski i bardzo się cieszę, że wyraził chęć i przyjął nasze zaproszenie. Pan doktor habilitowany Karol Kowalski, profesor Politechniki Warszawskiej, dyrektor Instytutu Dróg i mostów. Na tejże uczelni członek jednego z komitetów technicznych PIARC, członek Rady Naukowej przy Generalnym Dyrektorze Dróg Krajowych i Autostrad, autor dziesiątek ekspertyz opinii technicznych, również twórca 3 patentów oraz kilku wdrożeń również w Stanach Zjednoczonych, jak i w Polsce. Panie profesorze, bardzo proszę, oddaję panu głos.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to be not the first one, and what I can say, I agree with almost everything what was said until now, and there is almost no space for me for my presentation, because beginning from Patrick and then with the Christos and another presentation, almost everything was covered. So with my presentation, I will try to add something to this or say in other words, but there is not that much space. So as first, let me quickly tell about my university. Next slide, please. Warsaw University of Technology is the biggest technical university, and we think this is the best technical university in Poland. We have the aspiration to be the leader in our region, in Middle Europe region. We have 19 faculties, including civil engineering faculty. Next slide, please. There are two faculties two institutes in our faculty. One of this is Institute of Roads and Bridges. Next slide, please. And the main activity of my institute is everything related to roads and bridges, including tunnels, include soil, include geotechnical work, include transportation planning, including construction, asphalt roads, concrete roads, materials. My major specialty is asphalt pavements. So from the general words, I will try to focus to the more narrow ideas in the next part of my presentation. Next slide, please. So the first part is the presentation is innovation level in civil engineering and barriers. And I was asked for this presentation last week. I was trying to do my best. Next slide, please. And I started to think about that. And to be honest, civil engineering is not a rocket science. Well, we know about that, right? There are no big things like in the drones or something like that developed in our areas. If we will take a look on the number of patents in the industry, well, medical devices, oil and gas, biotechnology, automotive, there is no road and bridges. There is no such a thing. Well, if we will take a look on the number of the name of the companies, you cannot say any, you cannot see any construction company over there, right? Well, we know how this looks like. Probably most of us were small kids when they see some civil engineering work, either skyscrapers or bridge construction or road construction, and they were taking a look through the hole in the wall and say, oh, maybe I will be the engineer, right? Now there is a YouTube, so the kids can subscribe the channel and they cannot go outside to see that. Next slide, please. But I think there is still a lot of space for innovation in our area. We had the old way of construction, and now we develop, we don't have a big revolutions, but we have more evolutionary changes in our area. And I think there is still a lot which can be changed, which can be modified. So why we don't have that big speed with those changes? What is slowing us down, slowing us? Next slide, please. Who are the main actors in this game? What are the particular things which has to be connected? What are the process? Well, university. I'm the person from the university, from the research area. So I think we are important in this game, but we cannot, at least we shouldn't be the one who will really recognize what's the problem, what should be the new thing. The innovation, the solution may came from the academia, but pointing out what are the problems probably came from the more practical side of the process. So, and there is many issues which has to be connected. Legislation, what's the climate for the changes, for the modification, for innovation, if there are funds, where the funds are. Without the money, we cannot do much. Even if we have money and we will have a new solution, well, how to implement that? Well, and there is a know-how. There is a technical capability. There are the people needed for that. There are laboratories. There are so many things has to meet in one place to be able to say, okay, now we know the problem, we know how to solve this, and we'll try to make the world better. The civil engineering, the road business, the road construction business, even the really small change may save a lot of dollars, because this will be multiplied by the million and million of tons of materials which will be built in. So, and also the small mistake would cost a lot of dollars. So that's why the multi-stage process is important here. So the development, lab scale validation, full scale validation, and then commercial application. You also should remember that there are like two parts of the players here in terms of the implementation. There is the public body, which is the biggest operator and for the most of the roads, biggest owner of the most of the roads, and subsidize the most money for the road construction. And there are also typically private company for the construction or for design. So there are two somehow different things in this game. Next slide, please. Second part is about the directions and achievements which we have. And there will be also the third part, the last one. Second slide, please. Next one. The main directions of innovation in roads, and now I will try to focus more to the technical side, more to this, what I'm doing in each day. And of course, this list is not complete. There can be something added to this list. Road and bridge construction, reconstruction, renovation, maintenance. So we already talked about that today. And this includes geotechnical work, pavement, materials and technologies, construction technologies, maintenance technology. Then the second big part is related more to the process and to these hot words which we have now, which are the hot words used in the most of the PIARC technical committees, technical actions, which should include a few years ago sustainability. Now probably they should include the word resilience. There are some hot terms which should be included. Sustainability, resilience. Earlier there was ecology, security, cybersecurity, durability, circular economy, LCA, LCCA. Those terms by itself, they will not fix the problem, but they will show the directions for those technical developments. Then completely new era, which is opening now, is energy harvesting, energy storing, and energy delivering to the vehicle. And again, completely different part is the road network, design and management, tolling, asset management with this, evaluation or assessment. Next slide, please. So trying to be more focused, this sustainability development, there are, of course, different definitions of that. One of that I try to provide. But how this is connected to the road industry, to this what we can do each day? Well, for sure, road construction requires application of huge amount of material and work interfering with natural environment. That's for sure. And for sure, this is typically not good in a short term, but long term can be good and bigger society. Road construction is especially connected with social costs in case of reconstruction, traffic delays, and etc. Materials and technological solutions. Limitation of the main idea of this limitation of the negative effects of road construction, and this can be achieved by the recycling and using natural resources available locally and trying to use the renewable resources, then using of biodegradable materials, reduction of technological temperature, higher durability of road structure, a limitation of traffic noise, and all of that can be assessed in terms of LCA and LCCA analysis. And in each of those places, you can find lots of ways for the innovation. Next slide, please. And to be even more precise, the main idea in terms of the technology is recycling by application of material from milling old asphalt pavement, RAP, not new topic. The topic which is more popular during the crisis time in the 70s, in the 90s, at the end of the first decade of 21st century, probably now as well. So recycling, and because of the money, not only because of the ecological issue. So recycling, and to be honest, asphalt, we really can be proud in our business because asphalt is the most often used material in whole world. Asphalt, all asphalt roads. Then lowering the technological temperature and application of asphalt binder from the product lowering of the technological temperatures during production of asphalt mixes, during the placement of asphalt mixes, limitation of transportation noise, and I mean not only noise barriers. I'm not a big fan of noise barriers. Sometimes they are required, but not always. But because of the tire pavement interaction work in this area. Application of fly ash from self-leveling backfills. A lot of earthwork is going on. Road structure durability increment. Innovative methods providing high quality of road work with test method not requiring the use of solvents. So how to check the quality of the work, of the technical work which was done. And again, completely not new topic, but there is still a lot to be done. Use of tire rubber waste in asphalt mixture. Next slide, please. And here I removed part of the names of our sponsors. Sorry for that, because I'm showing the ongoing projects in my institute. Just part of them, bituminous binders for recycling. And each of the projects is relatively high amount of money. And looks like the companies and the government, they have the interest on that. So this is the biggest method to check if this is something important or not. So special binder, which will help to increase the amount of RAP for recycling. Then self-healing of asphalt pavement. Well, I would say it's quite innovative. So the asphalt, after 5-10 years of use, will show some small cracks, and those cracks will be filled in by the microcapsules with special material which is inside. Then high performance asphalt pavement for special solutions. Next slide, please. About this first one, this which we have in a topic in the top, I will talk more in the next slide. Use of eco-friendly material of a new concept of asphalt pavement. This was quite long study of the multinational consortium, and the topic was about different layers of asphalt road. In each layer there was some place for the innovation. Then the recycling of asphalt pavement wrap and quiet asphalt pavement, some recently finished project, ongoing project, sponsored by the private sector, by the Polish companies, by the international companies, by the General Directorate. Next slide, please. Rubber in asphalt, warm mix asphalt. Well, we have quite a lot of achievements. I'm not showing the graph with particular results of stiffness of asphalt, of number of decibels. I think here is within this 15 minutes which I was given, there is no space for that. Next slide, please. Few more words about this APSA project, about this multi-layer solution. Well, dissemination. Dissemination is something what is not popular in our area because we are not talking. We are doing the job, right, in the road construction. But sometimes talking is also important. Sometimes dissemination of the project of the results is also important. So, if you're interested, I'm showing the website. The next slide, please. What was the very interesting is that this was, as I said, multinational consortium within the EU funds, with private sector, with the big companies, and with the really small companies, with the test sections in Poland, in close to Madrid, in Spain. So we are quite proud of this project. And in each asphalt layer, there was some area for the innovation, for the biopolymers, for the vegetable oils, for the higher use of demolition waste. And finally, it was increasing the durability of the road. Next slide, please. So this was our more sustainable roads. So here I'm showing which technology we validated: bio-waste, waste materials, recycled materials. What did we establish, and which technology we used? So. For each asphalt layer, including for each layer of asphalt pavement, including the granular layers, we place some way of the innovation. And of course, some patents were utilized here. Next slide, please. And summary, because we are tired and this is the last presentation in our session. And the main directions, which I think can be shown here. Next slide, please. So the most important is whose interest, and then who are the main partners, and there will be different way of the cooperation. The university itself, typically it will not work good. University itself is good for the fundamental studies, for the really theoretical studies, which can be a good base for the next step. So this will be a government on different levels, central or local road agency. There can be material producer, quarry, cement plant, refinery for asphalt production, concrete asphalt mixture plant. There can be construction company, there can be granting agency. Well, size matters. There can be a small project, a medium project, a big project, big international consortium. And the big problem we have in our area, if we will have something really specific, something with patents, well, we need a public procurement for most of our work. If our solution will be, I would say, too good, it cannot be chosen because we will limit the number of the players during the public procurement. So this is a big constraint sometimes. So this can be national development, international development. individual and consortium partners, of course, always is the intellectual property issue. And the engineers can find the solution quite quickly, and the lawyers will discuss about this for the very long time before we'll sign any agreement with other partners. We need a few weeks for the signing the agreement, and then the engineers start to work, and we are happy. Next slide, please. And this is really the last slide, and the European Green Deal. Now we are talking a little bit less about that because we have the war in Ukraine, but this was the hot topic last year, at the end of the last year. And well, you cannot see here civil engineering, right? You cannot see here roads. Of course, although all of that, I would say, is about roads. It's about the innovation in roads. It's about the innovation in transport, innovation in bridges. So I think we shouldn't feel that we are not rocket science and we are not creative. We can be really creative. We can be the space for the utilizing a lot of new ideas. The next slide, please. Just trying to visualize this, what I just said. Next one, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kowalski. Really very interesting when you start looking at innovation, and we really need to, as civil engineers, start the process through our colleges and teaching everybody about the ability and the opportunity that they would have in their careers to be creative and innovative. So what we're going to do now, we're actually going to take some questions for our first panel, and then we'll do a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back for our second panel. And for Professor Kowalski, do you have research on the phenomenon of fatigue in the recycled asphalt layer?
Should I answer now? Yes, we are working on that, and I would say there is also a work. You didn't ask this question, but there is also a work on what will happen of the second using of RAP or the third using of RAP, right? So we have the old pavement, we are milling it and using this in the new mixes, and then after 15 years we are milling this and using again. So how many times can we do this? How many what rejuvenators can we add? How much of this rejuvenators should we add? How this will work in different climate? Well, it's simple at the beginning, and then you are opening the different doors in the drawers, and you can find a lot of problems. But also this, what you mentioned, yes, about the fatigue.
And I believe the next question, even though it's not specifically addressed to someone, I think it's also addressed to you, Professor Kowalski. It's coming from a Cameroonian engineering student working on integrating climate change impact on the design of pavement and rehabilitation using BEAM. And what advice can you give someone to better address this issue?
Well, that's a good question. What advice can I'm not sure if I can give any advice now. I think the BEAM which is, I think in terms of BEAM, the part of the civil engineering which is not related to roads is more advanced, and in roads and bridges we are less advanced, but there is still a lot of us which can be done in this area. We are in the early stage level with this, and if this will be connected with time and the fifth dimension of this, which is climate changes, well, that's very interesting study. And you said it's Cameroonian, right? From Cameroon. So I think in Cameroon the climate, I'm not sure about how big the climate changes in Cameroon. but for sure, I believe there is not many freestyle cycles, which can be a problem in some more northern climate countries. Well, I think that the main advice is just to talk with different players, different part of the process. So not only to think that only one part has the monopoly for the knowledge, like only the industry or only the public body or only the university. Together we can do more.
Thank you, Professor Kowalski. Do we have any questions from the people in the room?
Okay, so welcome after the break. I know that there is a problem with the Polish-English translation, so I will start in English to make it more comfortable for English-speaking guests. And so now we will start with a presentation of our two colleagues from Krakow Division of General Directorate of National Roads and Motorways, Ms. Magdalena Karolak and Ms. Małgorzata Stryczek, both project managers with a huge experience, both involved in the introduction of BIM in a Polish road administration. They were both involved in the pilot project when it comes to BIM adoption, and now they will say a few words during two presentations from two different perspectives, and I give you, the floor is yours.
Okay, I will add to this. May I speak? Okay. I would add to this introduction that I am a member of PIARC as well, Task Force 1.1, well-prepared project. And we have almost completed our task, our task force, and the report is being translated at the moment, and I would like to encourage you to get to know it. Maybe you will find some interesting information in it. And this presentation will be about bypass of Zator. This is the first project where our institution attempted BIM implementation. So in this project, we have taken measures to check what benefits can be expected if we implement this innovation. The project is currently at the development stage. The construction permission is processed, and once we get it, we will kick off the construction. First, we will, of course, do the public procurement, and then we will kick off the construction. And Zator, it is a small city in the south part of Poland. It is famous for maybe the biggest amusement park in Europe. And the city is close to Krakow. And the project includes construction of 2 kilometers single carriageway, and there are no complicated structures, no complicated crossings or challenging soil condition in this project. And we have selected this type of project with purpose because we wanted it to be not too complicated from the technical point of view, not too complicated from the administrative formal point of view, in the meaning of obtaining decision, permissions, and decisions. And we also didn't want it to be in the focus of political and media interest. We simply needed some space for gaining knowledge, for thinking, considering, and for making mistakes. We needed space for the situation when something goes wrong, when we need to take some steps back in order to push the project forward. And the project has been unique because of two aspects. The first was BIM, of course, a new technology, a new something. But also it was unique because of the new approach to the project management. So our institution, GDDKNA, is like an authority on the Polish market. So we have the biggest experience, the biggest money, the biggest knowledge in the public investment. So it is said that we point out trends for procurements, for public procurements, and for investment, especially in the area of roads infrastructure. And in this project, the situation was different. We had neither knowledge nor experience. So in this project, we needed someone to point out goals, to point out right path for us to proceed to implement BIM. So we had to change the perspective, that's what the professor said, and step into students' shoes in order to gain some knowledge. So what we started with? We started with searching for consultant, an independent professional body to support us during the implementation stage. And this support was especially crucial in two fields. The first was setting and selecting BIM-related goals and requirements for public procurement. And the second was professional support in a technical dialogue. A technical dialogue, it is a procedure described in a public procurement law. And it is a tool that enables you to describe the subject of contract in the case you don't have the necessary knowledge. So simply, you know what you want to get, but you don't know how. And interesting about technical dialogue is that this tool is hardly ever used by a public institution. I have been with the public administration for more than 20 years, and I have never ever taken part in a technical dialogue. So it is very likely that no one has been involved in a technical dialogue before in Poland. I'm talking about Poland. So it was really risky for us to organize a technical dialogue. So to diminish the risk connected with an unknown procedure, together with our consultant, we decided to organize an info meeting. It was before the formal procedure of technical dialogue. We invited all contractors to take part in this info meeting. And the atmosphere, the emotions were very high on this info meeting. It was like a fight between our institution and contractors. So it was so emotional that we expected a lot of application for taking part in a technical dialogue. We even prepared the selection criteria for technical dialogue. And so the outcome was a bit disappointing because we received only 4 applications for taking part in a technical dialogue. So on one hand, it was disappointing. On the other hand, it was a relief because we didn't need to use the selection criteria, and it is always risky. So on that info meeting, we wanted to prepare contractors how to prepare for a technical dialogue, because we would like to take as many advantages from a technical dialogue as possible. So we wanted contractors to be well prepared for it. And on that info meeting, we explained to them what is a technical dialogue for, how they should prepare for it, and how it would look like. Okay, one slide is missing. I will try to do without this one slide. And yeah, so as I said, there were 4 applications. We invited all 4 contractors. We had separated meetings with all of them. Each took about 3 up to 4 hours. And I must say that the emotions at the beginning of the technical dialogue were very high. But since we started a professional technical discussion, the temperature dropped. And on the technical meeting, on the technical dialogue, we asked each contractor about current level of beam they use, where they are with BIM, and what are the plans for the coming future. Then we asked about suggested goals for our pilot project. Then we presented a list of goals we prepared before with our consultant, and we asked about a comment for each of them. We asked if the goal is available from this contractor point of view. We asked if it is possible for other contractors on a Polish on a market in general. And we asked if the goal is in accordance with Polish Procurement Act, especially in the field of equal treatment and fair competition. So the next, what we did was asking about human resources, about knowledge, about tools necessary for implementing a goal. And then we asked about suggestion for future goals for maybe the next pilot project. Gosia is writing something for me, but I cannot read it. So this is first part, the introduction from my side. Gosia will tell you about the main part of the presentation, but what I would like to stress, there were two crucial moments on this early stage. It was setting and selecting goals. It took us a lot of effort, a lot of time to establish them. And the second was a technical dialogue to verify our goals with the reality. Because at the beginning, we had huge ideas what we can do with BIM. But the reality was a bit different. So now I will give the micro to Małgosia, and she will tell you where we are with the project now.
Thank you, Magda. So as Magda said before, technical dialogues took place in 2018. 2 years later, at the end of January 2020, we can say that it was kickoff of the first BIM pilot project in General Directorate for National Roads and Motorways. Then we signed a contract for carrying out design documentation, building design, detailed design, and tender documents. And right now is 2022, and we are in the time of finalizing design works. Yes, and BIM pilot project goals. We focus on 3 main areas. First one was standardization in a broad sense. The next was common data environment. And the last but not least, a BIM model. And as it is the most important document within the project is a BIM execution plan. BIM execution plan which holds all procedures and processes within the project. BIM scope of use is focused generally on detailed design. In building design, we model building structures, but we don't do quantity takeoff, so we don't do 5D BIM. It's in the stage of detailed design, and 4D BIM scheduling. As well as, of course, we don't do preparatory works. Data exchange is done by means generally Autodesk design for modeling of steel concrete reinforcement. We use Allplan and to exchange information by means of text files and spreadsheets, we use Word and Excel. And as an open format, we use PDF files. And standardization means standardization of file naming. And we use file names which consist of 15 characters, which consist of a combination of letters and digits and dashes. First letter refers to discipline. The second, the third, fourth character refers to design stage. The next two characters refers to design item or volume. And the next one are responsible for file type. The N or E letter means native or export format. And the last three characters are the following records numbers. And the second area of BIM implementation covers common data environment. Common data environment is used as a central information repository. So this is the place where the all pilot project information is housed. As a CDE, we use Bentley Bentley ProjectWise, and we through CDE we do some also procedures. Supply chain of information distribution shows this workflow. The files which are in the state of work in progress are seen only for originators. The next, when information is ready, the file updates to be shared with other project members, but project members in a contractors team, a design team. And as an employer, we can see these files when they are updated into client shared state. As I said before, this CDE is used as information exchange and a communication procedure tool. We said in our in employers' requirements that there are some procedures which should be done by means of a CDE. And here you can see that this procedure consists of submitting design documentation, monthly reports regarding work progress, application form regarding the permit for construction works, notes from all meetings that are held during this process, technical specification for construction works, and a road safety audit, and obtaining or changing the decision on environmental condition of the investment. And there are some area of CDE that the authorized access to this area has contractor or only employer. And also common data environment is connected to Microsoft Power Apps, which is used for setting automatic notifications. The last area of BIM and introduction is BIM model. BIM model used as a source of information on the existing under, on, and above ground infrastructure. And the information is such information as element name, dimensions, depth, diameters, installation technology, density, so material parameters. The second use of BIM model is a source of information on building structures and design parameters. Just what you can see on this slide, on the top, there is a picture taken from Civil 3D. And at the bottom, this is a model BIM in open format IFC 4.1. And the whole information is both in native format and in export format. BIM model is also source of information on building structures and design parameters for bridge structures. Just as you can see here, side panel, and also top picture is taken in Revit, and bottom picture is taken in open format. This is something new. The design team construct a 3D model of steel concrete reinforcement. And as you can see, these are some screens from this reinforcement. Each color shows the different diameter of rebar. And this is the wing wall of abutment. And here there are some screens from federated information model. So it's from coordination model, let's say. And here we have some cable ducting and drainage pipeline and the bridge structure and also reinforcement of bridge structure. And the last aspect of a BIM model is a data source for automating of bill quantities takeoff and construction planning. And here, this is the information on the volumes and areas of materials. And after taking this information in automatic way, there is additional application which puts it into the takeoff table. And to do coordination and clash detection processes, we use a federated BIM model, which consists of all BIM models. And of course, these BIM models are full of information. And as a report, we got some pictures which shows us the point that there are some non-continuities or some lag. So let's say some where something is wrong within the project. And this is the first step of BIM deployment. Just as someone said that a Kaizen philosophy is good for going into innovations, we are at the journey. We have to learn this lesson to put some conclusions, just to achieve, let's say, a small success to conduct another BIM pilot project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Magda and Małgorzata, for this presentation. Yeah, this is the first project with BIM methodology in Poland. As I mentioned earlier today, we would like to set or started a tender this year and find a construction company who use the documentation which was prepared and build this bypass. Of course, we will also take part in this process to learn how to introduce BIM on the construction phase. So it's still to come. And now our next presenter, our colleague from the General Directorate headquarters, is Ms. Marta Horodecka. She's the coordinating officer for a research program, development of research innovations. We talked about this morning together with the National Center for Research. Marta was responsible for this project from the very beginning, for the first competition, for the first call. Now she's preparing the second call. Actually, it will start just in a few days. So Marta, the floor is yours. Marta, we cannot hear you.
Teraz mnie słychać? Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry, czy mnie słychać?
We can hear you in the Polish channel, but we will need to hear the interpretation in the English.
Marta, I can see your microphone's on, but we still cannot hear you.
Sorry, Marta, your microphone is switched off in Zoom. Can you please switch it on? Can you speak up now, please? So you speak in Polish and we are missing the English translation. Is it possible to have English translation in Zoom?
English translation. Can you hear me? This
Yes.
is your English interpreter. Can you hear me right now? Okay, but we don't hear the speaker. I'm sorry, we don't hear the speaker at all.
Dyrekcji i Narodowego Centrum, które ma na celu...
Sorry, Marta, 1 second.
Background.
So for the interpreters,
That's
I
not
hear
enough.
I hear Marta. Can you hear Marta when I hear her speak in Polish? Do you receive the signal? Marta, can you please try again, please? I am afraid Marta has frozen and her internet connection is not working. Marta. Marta, when you're ready, please choose English channel. Let's try English channel first, and then you change to Polish. Can you choose English and make sure we hear you in English first? I am afraid Marta has frozen again.
Do tej pory tak. Zobacz, gdzieś się siła.
Christos, I suggest we try once more, and otherwise we go to the next speaker and come back later for Marta. Marta, can you hear us? Can we try English channel, please? Marta, can you hear us, please? Can you pick up English channel, please?
Tak, Zoom się nie słyszy, ale my w sali nie słyszymy. Jak mówię, jesteś w stanie, to jasne.
Marta, can you please switch on your microphone and make a last try?
We can hear you, Miguel, so it should be fine with Marta.
Okay. Marta, can you switch on your microphone, please? Christos, back to you if you want to keep trying with Marta or going to the next speaker.
Is there a way we can get Marta a quick message, Maciek? And I will go to the next speaker when we come back. Maciek, maybe in the interest of time, we can start the next presentation, which is pre-recorded. I can give the introduction if you like. Okay.
Hello, Marta. Oh, there we go.
Marta's muted again.
Marta, can we try once more? Can you please switch on your microphone and choose English channel first? Then we change to Polish. Can you speak up, Marta, in English channel, please?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Chwileczkę.
I apologize, but we only hear Marta in Polish. We don't hear in English.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Słyszymy. Nie najlepiej, ale My name is Marta Hordecka. Can't hear her hardly at all. Anyway, as General Directorate has reached commissioning and looking for solutions for problems of contemporary road construction, innovative solutions through R&D. General Directorate of National Roads and Motorways has identified over the years the operation of its mandatory operation, many issues and any needs with no ready solutions. As it turned out, there are no available publications, no available solutions. And you have to look for, in the academia, in laboratories, solutions to our daily problems, everyday problems. And thus we have started to try to identify our needs as administration, as organization, as the management of the road. We have defined 4 areas for intervention, focusing on technology of the construction, road management, modern design systems that were defined, and we began to look for projects that would meet our needs. We have defined 4 areas for interventions and 15 specific research topics. Under the first competition, we have selected contractors for R&D. Out of 76 applicants, the proposals to solve our problems. We started with the competition, and under these 15
Obecnie jesteśmy na ostatniej prostej wdrożenia.
We are at the end of the process of the implementation. A General Director has allocated, together with National Center, nearly 10 million euro, over 9 million euro towards R&D. It distributed slowly over the years of the duration of the project, regularly bearing in mind the effects the R&D process work brought up. In 2017, we spent 2,660,000 euro. In 2018, nearly 7 million euro. In 2019, we've spent 1,200,000 euro for R&D to answer that we're supposed to answer, to look for solutions to our major problems or issues as defined. The first of the areas was the technology of construction and renovation of roads and engineering structures, where we commissioned projects that were to demonstrate, to allow us to use recycled materials and find methodology to test asphalts that modified under Polish climate conditions. We used recycled materials. It was to allow us to select the best preferential methods that would allow us to use the mixed reused asphalt to build new roads and to renovate them. There'd been no such methodology that would allow us to clearly state that it's a product that meets the quality and can be used. Additional benefit was that the legislation of that time treated used material as hazardous waste and did not allow to use it in a technology. R&D commission, this is proved to be a great success. General Director has now used to rules to use them. A proportion technology that allows us to commission directly out of documentation how you can use the bitumen to be recycled. Of course, it's economically viable. It's better for environment, and we optimize the construction process. A second topic was the road and modified bitumen in Polish climatic conditions. We didn't have research findings that would confirm that using modified binders could be used and in a specific manner. R&D has met the needs of General Directorate. We not only implemented internal standards, but we've led to the modification of the national standard. So the benefit we've obtained is economically viable, lowering of the R&D cost, enhancing quality, optimizing the process itself. The next two projects commissioned alkaline reactivity of domestic aggregates. The topic focused on research on what methods to measuring should be applied so that it shows the highest effect and improves the quality of work and the supervision. We've obtained modern methodology. We've implemented internal regulations. The benefit was clear. You could calculate it to the money that we saved, and we could use more of the domestic aggregates for construction. And protection against traffic noise was also taken into account. We want to structure the knowledge and all possibilities to use appropriate noise reduction coefficients, not only in relation to appropriate screens, but in relation to the entire road infrastructure of quiet surfaces. The next topic or area where we identified the needs for intervention is that to develop, hang on, bear with me. Modern methods of soil identification in road construction. The project was based on our developing nationwide, applicable by other managers, methods to test, to perform subsoil tests, to be able to monitor it and to take interventions. And this uniform procedure in the form of allow us to save the money, to enhance the quality of the monitoring, and to optimize the entire process. Second area of intervention was to develop and to implement road projects based on most effective research methods. These were two very interesting topics. One, how to plan, focus on traffic roads, and the other one was to modern methods to calculate the capacity and assessment of traffic conditions roads outside urban agglomerations, including expressways. Both projects are strictly closely correlated. Having implemented them, there was a new product that we created, an intermodal analysis analytical tool that allows to focus traffic on transport networks, taking into account many factors. It's not only questionnaires, but economic calculations help us to forecast the changing traffic and its intensity. How can we design roads in the future, taking what factors have to be taken? It's a great benefit, both economy-wise, so we save as the manager, having our own research methodology and quality because we have more precise findings, and we optimize the technological process as well.
Another field of information was the field focused on equipping the roads and the surroundings. So apart from a safe pavement on the road, we need some protective barriers in the surroundings. And designing such protective barriers and other facilities, and also testing the impact of the environment and climate on the functioning of this protective facilities was our focus. And the two projects provided us with information to design better those protective barriers, their location, and other road safety elements that should be first and foremost safe for the road user. Another subject of intervention that was submitted under this project was the efficiency of the 2+1 lane cross-section, with emphasis on different solutions for separating traffic directions. So as a result of this project, the directorate has received some guidelines for the methods of separation of traffic directions that take into account the type of traffic, its frequency, its structure. We have obtained some ready models that we can use for procurement. Another important and interesting project was on the influence of advertising on the level of road safety. So as a result of this project, we obtain a methodology for the protection of the road lane from any infrastructure which can deconcentrate the road users. So many road users were tested, researched in terms of their reaction to the changing environment, to the light, to the large size elements within the lane of traffic, also depending on the distance. And a methodology was created that will help us as road managers to initiate changes in the law in terms of situating advertising boards on the side of roads that can affect directly the safety of the users. So another slide, please. Another area where we had 4 projects commissioned was the methodology of designing and managing the road network. The first project in this field was the selection of permissible traffic speeds on roads, including dynamic traffic management. As part of this project, we've received a prototype of an app enabling a smart system of selecting permissible speeds for different roads that can update itself automatically in real time with regard to the weather conditions, for example, traffic intensity, and can react actively to the changing conditions. This model has been used in the preparation of procurement as well as for the national traffic management system. Another element was the project on the impact of using intelligent transport system on the level of road safety. This project has defined mutual correlations between services and the ITS, and it was also to be used in the tenders. The products have found its application in the national system for traffic management. Another interesting project that was created has allowed, on one hand, to help project designers with a methodology for determining the number of required parking spaces at those rest areas, but also a prototype of an app was created to inform drivers of the occupancy status of the rest areas. So this has helped to lower the costs at the stage of design rest areas, because it has allowed for an optimal selection of the size of the rest area, taking into account the needs of users. Another subject that was commissioned as a part of R&D works was the experimental road markings in terms of the behavior of road users. As part of this project, guidelines were created that help introduce and inform road users whenever there is any new signage that's not been used before. So this project has allowed our agency to save financial means, the methodology for implementing this experimental markings is already in our hands. The general directorate, the clearness, the quality of such methods of selection is improved. As part of the projects, the directorate has received very specific results that it did not have before. So it now has studies, scientific studies, that help the directorate to take initiatives to change the law, because we have the basis, the scientific basis. For that, we know what the members of academia, what the scientists can provide. We have been able to create best practice guidelines to implement in specific activities, in specific situations. We've received calculations, procedures, and also research and its results, something that we did not have before. So the General Directorate, as part of its, as a result of this 15 projects, also received prototypes, source codes to enable to facilitate the management of processes at our institution. This entire program of commissioning R&D projects was not typical. The intervention was taken up in parallel in 15 different subject areas. We've received a number of different positive results that have facilitated our work. 2 years after receiving these results, we already know that it made sense, that we've received hard effects that can be monetized, that can contribute to better road management. And it is helpful when entering into debate with all the stakeholders of the road construction industry. Due to the fact that we can now see the first positive results of this commissioned R&D projects, and as part of the first call for projects, the General Directorate this year decided to commission the second round of projects and to select project providers for 6 different research topics defined by ourselves, and the estimated value of the commissioned research and development works are going to be at the level of 2.5 billion euro. Million or billion, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Marta. What we'll do, we'll take questions on the 3 presentations we had from our colleagues from Poland. If anybody has, please, put them on chat. And since I have the microphone, I actually have a question. When you were doing the beam for the bridge project, did you also overlay the construction building schedule on top of that?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So you actually can do a phase timing, so you can see as on the model that you build, yes, how it would get.
We can see all phases of construction works of each branches.
Okay, very good.
So this is the connection of scheduling with the model.
Yes, we did something similar in Rhode Island for a major bridge project. that had a lot of utilities going through the project, just so that we can actually identify the utility conflicts.
Yeah. This is really great, positive positive side of BIM, that you can expect what failures can happen during construction sites, during construction works. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? Do we have questions within the Jose Manuel?
Thank you. It's a question to Marta. I hope Marta is listening to me. As far as I've understood, has been defined 4 areas and a lot of fields for searching. My question is, how long studying these aspects to decide to make this decision, these 4 areas and these fields, in 1 month, in 6 months, in 1 year, only a little group of people, or asking everybody how to arrive to this big decision?
It is difficult to answer this question. It is difficult to answer this question, was the reply of Marta. I don't know if we've lost her. We don't hear her anymore.
Okay. So again, in the interest of time, Sisanda has a question.
Sisanda?
Thank you. My question goes to Małgorzata. Thank you very much for your presentation. On the BIM, oh, must I speak a bit louder? Okay. Okay. I just wanted to ask, how did your consultants and your contractors respond when you insisted on working on a 3D BIM environment? Because some of them are working in 2D, for example, in Autodesk, and then I assume you had to force them to move to 3D in order to build it. So what was the response during that first time that you asked them to move across?
It's a little bit different, because some part of the project is already been doing in 3D environment, but some, of course, as sanitary sewers, as power electric systems, telecommunication systems, they are being designed in 2D, and we have a modelers team who models these solutions from 2D to 3D. And it's been doing during the whole design process, because you have to upgrade something and so on. And for example, it depends, because when there are only small things, small items, it's really quick. It's, I don't know, 1 day or something like this. But we have we have this each week. We do checkings, and before these checkings, all design solutions are being modeled in 3D. And this clash detection and coordination is being done in 3D environment, because this is it. This is what is BIM in design for us, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Maciek. Again, while you are switching presentations, I'm going to do the introduction to our next speaker. Providing part of the European perspective on innovation in organizations, and we're going to have a presentation on the approach of the Traffic General Directorate in Spain from the Ministry of the Interior. Our colleague Ana Luz Jimenez Ortega She has a Master of Engineering, Road, Canal, and Port, and she's been involved in the ITS, traffic management, administrative, and safety activities of the Spanish Traffic General Directorate. She's participating in several national and international expert groups, and she's the Spanish Secretary in PIARC Task Force B1 and B2, Connected and Automated Vehicles. She's involved in urban and inter-urban mobility affairs, and she's looking curiously at the evolution of the world around to get a safer, sustainable, and green mobility environment.
Good afternoon. I would like to introduce which is the approach of Traffic General Directorate in Spain to innovation. For that, I would like to make a short introduction to explain the past, present, and future of the DGT, to discuss about innovation and organizational innovation, and finish with conclusions. DGT is the Spanish traffic administration in charge of management, control, and surveillance of road traffic, as well as the vehicle registry, the registry of drivers and offenders, and the National Registry of Traffic Accidents Victims. It is an autonomous organism of the Ministry of Interior, which executes the policies of mobility and road safety in the territory through the traffic headquarters, the management centers integrating them, and the traffic police. Other of the main activities of DGT is the administrative management of all driving licenses in Spain, the authorizations for the circulation of vehicles, and the application of the sanctioning procedure for those who do not comply with the rules. This administrative activity, together with traffic management and the development of specific information, sensitization, and awareness-raising campaigns, are aimed to prevent the occurrence of traffic accidents. DGT is the administration that analyzes the accidents in Spain and the design and application of the corresponding preventive measure in collaboration with the traffic police and with road owners. DGT was created in 1999 and reports to the Ministry of Interior. It exercises its competencies throughout all the national area and on all road networks. Since its creation, it has always been an organization with a strong innovative character and unique actions to achieve its objectives. For instance, in 1963 was created the first helicopter service to make surveillance of the road network and rescue of those injuries, people that result in traffic accidents. It was very few years after its creation. We have changed a lot in Spain. For instance, in 1959, we have almost the same road network, of length of road network, but we have passed from more than 2 million drivers to over 25 million drivers. And in the case of the vehicles, we have less than 1 million vehicles in our roads and streets, and now we have almost 36 million of vehicles going through. So the scenario, the environment has become very, very complex. This is one example of the awareness campaigns that DGT started by 1916. This means don't read tomorrow the newspaper what could happen to you today if you are not walking okay in the streets. So These are another awareness campaigns in 1994 or 2005 about helmet, but as I said before, we have a strong innovative character that, for instance, was lightened in the first circulation of an automated vehicle in free-flowing traffic in November 2015. For that circulation, it was necessary to publish the first instruction in 2015 about the driving of automated vehicles in free-flowing that has been modified in 2020 and recently, almost 1 month ago, in 2022, to adapt what is happening or what can happen to this reality. Another innovation milestone that has been shared by DGT is the new speed limits in cities in Spain. Since January 2019, the new speed limits in cities are those: 20 kilometers per hour when single platform, 30 kilometers per hour when you have one lane in each direction, and 50 when the street has more than one lane in each direction. This is how has changed our cities, how has changed after January 2019. This is the main change that we have registered, and there are no changes when the street is big enough. Is for passing traffic through, and you need more capacity. Another issue about innovation is that in Spain, my organization has reached the first radar on board an helicopter worldwide approved. So we can measure speed with this special camera in our helicopters, what makes that drivers are very awareness in special areas. So the surveillance is mainly aimed at reckless driving behavior, stretches with a high risk of accidents, and roads with a higher traffic of vulnerable users, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcycles in our roads. But we have introduced drones to make surveillance tasks, and it requires a pilot, a camera operation, and the official of traffic police gives the driver the notification at the moment the traffic violation has occurred. So it's quite impressive to receive the notification when you have just make a traffic violation. So it's important to prevent from committing these traffic violations. These are technical specifications about the drones we are using. We are trying them, and we have changed about 2 or 3 times of models, but we are really happy about how it is working. But as has occurred with a lot of organizations, COVID-19 has become for us as a disruptor in the digital transformation. We think that those who are more advanced in the evolution from the analog to the digital world are in more competitive conditions in all sectors: commerce, training, services. So public administration are not out of this reality, and the digital transformation processes have accelerated. For example, in our case, the use of MiDigity application that allows the driver's license to be carried out on the cell phone, and the documentation of the vehicles, and to interact with us from that application. We have to publish the corresponding law to make the mobile driving license valid at national level, as it already works in other countries like Norway or Finland, but this reality is taken into account in the preparation of the new European Directive on Driving License that will allow to have our driving license in the cell phone. But what we mean when we refer to organizational innovation? I think we mean that what is done is innovative and the way the results have been achieved is innovative. Thus, we find an innovative corporate culture. So, innovation is not equal to technology. Technology can facilitate, can be a good level for improving, can determine the necessity of changing, but using technology does not guarantee an innovative corporate culture. Small little innovative actions could make you reach great achievements. You can find in the picture the huge Plaza de España Square in Seville, which is made of the small bricks you can see here. So small little innovative actions could make you reach great achievements. So what we think is needed for innovation? First of all, we have to have clear objectives. Second, we have to listen to everybody in the organization. Everyone can contribute to innovate. It's good to have a why not approach, thinking out of the box. But of course, it's necessary to have a deep reflection and a study before acting. If possible, we think it's very positive learning by doing and go from the small to the biggest. For that, inside organization, communication is essential, becomes really essential to get exit. Also, outside communication is too very important. We should be valiant, but rigorous and meticulous. So, to finish, as a conclusion, can we continue doing what we have always doing the same way? We think that no, innovation is essential to survive, because the only thing that never changes is that everything is always in change. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ana Luz. Really great presentation and great way to finish. So we're going to move next to Australia, and with our colleague Alan Colgate, who's the Acting Executive Director for Strategy and Communications, Main Roads Western Australia. And Alan is responsible for corporate strategic planning and overseeing the provision of timely, accurate and customer-centered communications, and represents Australia and New Zealand on the World Road Association Committee on Performance of Road and Transport Administrations. He's also a member of the United States TRB, Transportation Research Board. And since I have the microphone, I would like to invite other people here to become friends of some of the TRB committees. There's a lot of great research that actually comes out of that, particularly the International Coordinating Council. Doesn't do a lot of research, but that's where you create the connections for the research. So Alan is also divisional coordinator and member of the awards committee of the Australasian Reporting Awards, a not-for-profit organization aimed at improving accountability and transparency in annual reporting across Australasia. And with that, Maciej, can we start Alan's presentation, please?
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to present on the innovation and research program that we conduct at Main Roads Western Australia. I'd like to commence today's presentation by acknowledging the First Nations people, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land where I'm presenting from today. And in doing so, I pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and any First Nations people that might be viewing this presentation. I thought it would be useful from the point of view of the Innovation Research Program to firstly talk about where it fits in the strategic context of our organisation. Our strategic plan is known as Keeping WA Moving, and it's not a traditional 5-year plan. We don't actually have constructs based around timeframes. Instead, what we do is have a vision of what the transport network might look like or might need to look like as we reach various population milestones within Western Australia. So the innovation program is focused around our 4 strategic areas of focus, being customers, sustainability, movement, and safety. But it's also underpinned by our guiding principles. And those principles identify how we're going to operate and deliver our works on a day-to-day basis. And in doing so, what we're looking to do is to be agile and responsive organisation that can actually prosper in a rapidly changing environment, which I think, regardless of any pandemic, our environment in the transport sector has been rapidly changing for the last decade or so at least. But also, as organisationally, we want to recognise and cultivate innovation to help us stay ahead and take up the challenges that are facing us. So how do we define innovation in main roads? Well, for us, we're talking about it being anything new to main roads that adds value to our business. This is quite a broad definition, but what it does is means that we're not only focused on blue sky thinking. We're not only focused on things that don't already exist. Instead, what it does is give us the opportunity to have a look and see what's working in other jurisdictions and exploring whether or not we can use the Innovation Research Program to test those ideas in our own environment and to see whether they actually work. Now, the program itself consists of an annual budget of $1 million per year, but that is quite small in the context of the total main roads budget, which sits at around about $3.1 billion. However, it is useful to have that annual allocation so that we can actually plan and have projects run over multiple years. In terms of the projects, we can have projects ranging anywhere from $20,000 through to $150,000. And at any one time, we would anticipate having somewhere in the order of 10 to 20 live projects. There is an opportunity to apply for that funding on a monthly basis, and we do carefully manage that to ensure that we have full allocation of those funds over the year as a whole. In terms of how do you get hold of the money, essentially it is a collaborative process. In the first instance, what we do is to encourage applicants to come and talk to my team. I have 2 people in the innovation and research team, and we get them to discuss their project idea with the team and help them to write that up, a draft project proposal, and have that reviewed and provide feedback to give it the greatest level of success. Once we've got to the point where both my team and the proponent are comfortable that the application is representative of what they're seeking to do, then we go through a formalised process to seek for support from the hierarchy within the organisation. One of the things that we do stress throughout the entire innovation and research program is that we are not going to support this unless there is a definite business need and there is the support of the area that will actually need to use this outcome in their own area. Too often, I think we see programs where people come up with great ideas, but there's not anyone that actually wants to put that idea into practice. So here we actually try to secure and identify, if you like, champions or people that will actually be the users of the outcome of the research to identify that they want this project as well. So we then submit it through to the Innovation Research Panel. That's a panel of peers from across the organisation, from different disciplines, who are able to test that the theory of whether or not this research proposal should go ahead. And then ultimately, it goes to corporate executive for us to consider and then authorise that funding release. And so it has a high level of support right throughout the organisation before it even gets into the funding process. We do try to make the application process as easily as possible. The whole idea that behind the application process is to assess the idea, not to reduce the risk. If we reduce the risk, then we're starting to go into the solution finding and starting to potentially interfere with the benefits that would come from letting a project run through the process. We look at answering 8 questions, which is around clearly identifying what the problem or the opportunity is, and then what those outcomes are. And also, rather than going in blind, what we do is we ask the people, the proponents, to make sure that they have a look around and understand what is the current status of any research that's been done. We also want to make sure that it fits within the strategic context of the organisation and have some sense of what the approach and scope of work and service provision might be. Ultimately, what we're looking for is to understand what the potential impacts of the organisation would be. So from that point of view, we do need to understand the risk, not necessarily to mitigate them at this point. We need to understand what the approximate costs are and overall what the benefits are to main roads. Now that sounds like a lot, but in actual fact, what we're looking for is around about 3 A4 pages, and the template is designed to guide you through that process. And the responses can be anywhere from a few sentences through to half a page of explanation, but it needs to be enough so that an assessment can be made by the Independent Innovation and Research Panel. What I'm attempting to show on this slide here is just the diversity of the projects that are run through our particular innovation and research program. And with this first one here, when you look at the genetic algorithms kind of in the heading there, you might think we're trying to cure the coronavirus. But in actual fact, this is actually about optimizing asset management decisions using our high-speed data that we've collected and identifying different ways that we can actually analyze that data and come up with better asset management decisions across our 18,500 kilometres of network. That project has not yet been completed, but it is showing very promising signs at the moment. The second project on the screen is one that is around improving the biodiversity of our alongside our road network. We do have a parasite that exists in native plants here in Western Australia that when we actually are using naturally occurring materials such as gravel and laterites from gravel pits, we run the risk of spreading this so-called dieback disease. And what we've found is that we've been able to identify a method of removing that dieback parasite from the gravel pits, which is enabling us to be able to access that material at a very low cost. So there is the potential to not only protect the environment, but also to reduce our costs in terms of maintenance and construction with the use of natural materials. And then the final one there is video analytics for drone footage. And what we've been able to do is to overcome limitations that exist in terms of commercial systems that are currently available and use the drone footage and analytics algorithms and machine learning in a way that's been able to give us information that we've not previously had before. So again, without going into lots of detail, it does show that there is quite a diverse range of work that's being done. Now, some of this work is done in-house and some of the work is contracted out. So part of the decision-making process for corporate executive is around the allocation of resources, where we do actually use our own staff over and above just being project managers. But we also work very closely with institutions such as universities in order, and other cooperative research centres in order to deliver our innovation and research program. And what that does is it fosters positive relationships with those organisations, but also helps to expand knowledge about the business of main roads and the things that we're involved with. Now, if we look at the impact of the innovation and research program, there's quite a bit on this slide, but essentially what we do is we break down at the end of each program a formal closeout report and calculate a return on investment calculation. Now, that return on investment calculation is done both at the project level and at the whole program level, and we report that to corporate executive at the conclusion of every closeout report. As you would imagine, successful projects do tend to have a very high return on investment. And not all of our projects are successful. We have somewhere in the order of 35% of our projects are unsuccessful. But it does help to keep the project phase in perspective by having that rolling program return on investment. And what you can see is in the bottom boxes there that over the life of the program, the discounted return on investment, taking into account a 20-year time frame, is currently sitting at 142%. And the net present value is $41.6 million over a 20-year period. And on top of that, the BCR is coming in at this point at 29.3. Now that will vary depending on the success of projects. And as I said, the ROIs, the return on investments, where they are successful, do tend to be quite high. In terms of the benefits to the INR program users, well, what it does is it provides wider corporate awareness by including corporate executive in that approval process. It actually highlights a range of work that's been done across the organisation. But not only that, it actually facilitates collaboration across different areas within the organisation. And that might be across regional divisions, or it might be across technical specification areas where people identify an opportunity within their field of discipline that's going to have multiple impacts across whole other areas of the business. And I think that's an important benefit that comes out of this program. The other thing it does is it provides funding. One of the issues is often with the limited funding within branch budgets, it makes it very difficult for managers to be able to allocate funds, essential funds to deliver their services to projects that may fail, projects that might not come to anything, or projects that need a commitment of funding over a number of years that can't necessarily be guaranteed. So what this program does is to reduce that funding barrier. And it reduces the likelihood that an individual is going to say no because of competing funding priorities within their own branch for imperative and priority delivery projects. But I think the other thing that's important is that the program is seen as a safe place to fail. Not all the business areas are going to be successful. Not all of our projects are going to be successful. And part of my role on executive is to make sure that there is an acceptance across the executive team that failure is an acceptable part of any innovation and research program. But it's to be aware of spending a small amount of money and failing early rather than making a significant commitment without really knowing what it is that we're committing to. And we use that and promote that concept across the organisation that that is an acceptable outcome from the innovation and research program. So look, that is a very quick summary of what is quite a complex program with very many interesting projects that have been done in it. I hope that perhaps it's given you a bit of food for thought. And if anyone's interested, I'd be more than happy to share further information on our program and how we go about running it. Thank you very much for the time to present to you and to share this information with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I know you are with us on Zoom, but unfortunately you weren't able to be with us here. Our last presentation for the day, we go back to Europe in Flanders, Belgium, from Anne-Severine Hoepelier, who is currently the head of the Division of Roads and Traffic in Flemish-Brabant, where she's managing a provincial road department with 150 employees, including engineers for the construction of new roads, bridges and tunnels, and including those responsible for the maintenance and day-to-day management. In addition, she is actively involved in asset management and innovation, such as BIM that we talked today, mobility data, etc. she, in addition to all of the work that she's doing for her agency, she teaches road construction technologies at the Catholic University of Leuven, and she's an active member of PIARC from 2008, recently elected as a member of the Executive Committee of PIARC and Chair of the Finance Commission. So with that, we'll start with Anne Severin's presentation, and then following Anne Severin's presentation, we'll actually have a Q&A and then a panel discussion led by Professor Kowalski.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to contribute to this international workshop on innovation and the innovative organization here held in Warsaw. I'm very pleased to present you the case study of Flanders. My name is Anne-Severine Paupleer, and I work for the Agency for Roads and Traffic in Belgium. And I also am active at the PIARC TC11 committee. In this presentation, I would like to give you an insight into the approach of innovation within our own agency over the past years. We all experienced and witnessed an acceleration in technology development in various areas across our core businesses. This as a road operator and as a road traffic manager. We are all triggered from all sides. I hope you enjoy the presentation with our practice in Flanders. An important innovation driver is the rapid development of intelligent transportation systems. As a part of the European ITS Directive and the resulting delegate acts, we have seen the rapid development over the last 10 years of CITS systems, connected intelligent transport systems, in which the vehicle became part of the mobility network. Moreover, we have seen the rise of other interesting technologies like artificial intelligence, mobile edge computing, automated driving, blockchain, BIM, using canvas data for cars to gather safety-related traffic information, and so on. In fact, digitization is everywhere. It is more than digitizing paper processes. It's all about changes in the business and government work and communication. It's about how we organize governmental services and tackle social issues. And this includes both government and the private sector. As a road administration, we are not alone in the field. We are on the side of an ecosystem. We are in an ecosystem and are looking for the role we should play in it. We all need to put more focus on the day after tomorrow innovation. Like Peter Hinson tells in his concept, the activities that we do today and should continue to do, we would rather get rid of if we do not want to miss the future. It's a lesson we should take with us. Let's look first what our agency is doing on innovation. Well, there are a lot of initiatives. Internally, our organization, we detected at least 270. A lot of them. But can they be executed according to the available capacity? Which choices do we have to make? A lot of questions to be answered. Are they on schedule? Are they on budget? What is the target? Are there issues shared? That's how PIC was born. Portfolio, Innovation and Change, to fill the blind spot between the management and the project managers. The role of PIC, well, unburdening project teams, keeping track, guarding the goals, and stimulating innovative culture. For the setup, we have, next to the execution engine, innovation engines. We have the Change Lab and the Innovation Lab, and of course, a PMO for the management. This is the implementation. We need people to do this. As you see, 6 very motivated people. And next to that, an innovation and change board with its pick, a delegation of the steering committee, and of course, the support of our CEO. What's also important is a network of ambassadors. These are the project leaders. The real engines of this are the people itself. To work with all these people, we need a definition. Innovation is adding value to the products, the services, and the processes, both technology and methods. We also see different horizons for innovation. We have the incremental innovation, the new innovations, and the disruptive innovations. Innovation means also change. Change management is concerned with systematically changing the organization, structure, and methods, but with attention to the human aspects to minimize the resistance against the change and the innovation. To implement it in our organization, we have some guiding principles, not only on innovation and change, but also for the business as usual. It's necessary to keep it ongoing. And we have a specific team who is doing corrections on the business as usual by doing audits, optimizations, and so on. Within all the initiatives on innovation, we want to decide our focus areas. We looked specific to the road sector, PIARC and CEDAR, to the European Commission, and also external to the road sector. So we defined 4 focus areas: smart roads through digitalization, European Green Deal, connected cooperative and automated mobility, and change. We made a portfolio with 21 strategic initiatives, 19 innovative trajectories, and 13 change processes. I give 2 examples, BIM and mobility data. BIM, we all know as the digital twin. We have the physical infrastructure and the digital infrastructure to work together. It's very challenging, but we want to be more. We want to be a digital road manager. Therefore, one of our bigger programs is mobility data. We want to realize a positive contribution in Flanders in relation to road safety, traffic flow, and emissions. And this by implementing a sustainable digital data infrastructure and the stimulation of the user turnover within innovative applications. The innovative solutions we want to implement are the CITS applications with intelligent traffic light control systems, but also the rollout of other CITS applications, R&D of our next generation smart mobility applications, and supporting applications for the public policy. Here you see the high-level architecture with the private and the public sides. Here you see the partners and the responsibilities with different agencies and IMEC. And here, just to show you that we make it very practical, the mobility data use cases. There are 31 cases determined. For example, you have the intelligent traffic lights with priority for emergency vehicles, for public transport, for vehicle convoys. By 2023, we want to have more than 250 intelligent traffic light control systems in Flanders. And another example consists of roadwork warnings. Behind all these, of course, data is the driving factor. So we have to be sure that our data is of a high quality. The second question, what are we looking to answer through innovation? Well, we need to know which initiatives we need to start today to still be relevant in future, in 2030. But we define some risks. First of all, there is a tension between people who combine the business as usual and the innovation and change. They know they have to work on the future, but what with the work they have to do every day. Especially in COVID times, where there is a recovery plan and the priority should be on this, there is not so much time to work on innovation anymore. And the second risk is the question where we have the organization versus the emergency strategies choices we have to make. This is a daily struggle. We have a lot of ideas, but we have to make choices. We can't do everything, but which innovation deserves our attention? And which choices can we make next to this? We need the right balance between the strategical choices and the innovations, which is not so easy. We see here a big and very important role for our PIC. And then our third question, last but not least, how do we encourage innovation among the staff? As I explained before, we work with ambassadors within our staff. These are the project leaders. They are very motivated. They want to go forward with their projects and contaminate other members of our organization. And this is very important because whether we have a PIC or not, innovations belongs to everyone, to all of our employees. And this is where the team PIC can add value. It's the PMO office of and for the organization. They can add value for the projects and the project leaders by giving them visibility, like you see on the pictures on the right side, putting effort in the communication, but also by providing project approaches or by constructing networks of peers between the project leaders, between the ambassadors, by delivering tools and organizing trainings, and by helping them with innovative contracts, by mentoring, even help them by subsidies initiatives. This is a way of support for all the people taking the road to innovation within our organization. And so giving added value to all members of our organization, not only the project leaders or the ambassadors, but every member. We want to go forward because if we are standing still, we are going backwards. Everybody knows. And with our team PIC, we want our organization to be more relevant than ever by 2030. Therefore, we want to be an open and transparent organization. Open culture for innovation, where every employee can express their ideas about innovation. And we also want to offer all our members a network of like-minded employees who are passionate about innovation, the new culture. Team PIC also wants to make sure that good ideas are picked up and are not forgotten by the many daily activities, the stress between innovation and business as usual. Innovations implies change. Change in the organization itself also, in the services offered, but also in the job content and the required competences of our people. We want to detect these potential changes at an early stage and supervise the changes in the organization, the services and the job content. So we can make sure that together we can take big steps in innovation. In other words, as a conclusion, we hope to capture innovation and be agile to remain relevant as a road administration in the future in the bigger, large ecosystem. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm willing to answer all your questions after the presentation of my colleague of North America in the Q&A session.
Thank you, Anne-Séverine, and thank you actually to all of our presenters for being here today and presenting. Looking to see if we have anything on chat. Do we have any questions for Anne-Séverine or for Alan? I don't see any questions on the Zoom chat. Any questions from the audience here? If not, then what I would like to do is ask Professor Kowalski to maybe lead a discussion both here and through Zoom on innovation and some of the things that we heard today.
Okay, I was not specially prepared for this discussion, so this will be innovative, sort of.
I should have said that this was a surprise to Professor Kowalski by asking him, just a few minutes ago, if he would be willing to step in and just, since we haven't had many questions, to maybe lead us into a discussion here.
So let me try to shortly remind what we talked about during last 3 hours. From the very beginning, from the general discussion, what is the innovation, we came to details. We had some examples, especially the example from the local host from Poland about the research program from 2018 until 2020, the so-called RAD1, and innovations which were developed together with the academia, with several universities from Poland, and we had some information about the BIM status, BIM status in Poland. And then the last presentation was from Belgium, from Flanders, and we hear that if we are not we are coming forward, we are moving forward with innovations. So this was to help us to discuss this what we hear today. So I see that there is 32 informational chat.
Probably from the whole day.
Maybe we have 32 questions. No, just the apologies.
No, but maybe we can start with a question that I have actually for you, Professor Kowalski, because we talked earlier about the fundamentals of innovation and how important it is as we hire new people and we are trying to recruit new talent, that they come to our administrations not just really for us to introduce them to innovation, but they need to be ready to be innovating the minute we hire them. So how can colleges and universities help us build this insight component of people willing to innovate and looking for new solutions through the curriculum that you are designing in colleges?
Well, that's a really good point. So we can have small internal discussion to help us for the bigger discussion. In the US, there is a popular movie for kids, The Curious George. Those of you who know the American context may know this better. Those of you who are outside of the US, probably you also saw the little monkey who is always curious. And I think that the most important is if we are curious. Every child is curious. And then somehow it slows down, don't ask stupid question. And when they are going to the university, some people are not asking the questions at all. So how can they be innovative if they are not asking questions and then they are not looking for the answers. So, and in different countries, there are really different teaching models, and not always asking the question is welcome. But I think this is one of the biggest advantage of being on academia, of having the contact with the young people, to see some easy things that they are not easy, by some stupid questions which actually are not stupid. And what I recognize is sometimes it is good that the people from, if there are the people from different disciplines, if they will meet, the people from road business, they are speaking the same language, and suddenly there came some people from the lawyer or the economist, and he will ask some basic question because he will don't understand the main idea. And this is the really good question, because it means that we also maybe not really understand the whole idea. So maybe this is partially answering the point. To be curious, right?
I was born curious. I think my parents were tired of me saying, why? So, and I still believe that you have to ask at least 5 whys before people tell you to stop asking. So, you know, but I think that's how we continue to look for answers. Jonathan, from the, you know, private sector perspective, you know, and you have been working on the innovation field for many, many years. What are some of the lessons that we can borrow as transport administrations from what you've seen from the private perspective?
Well, I suppose the bottom line from a private sector perspective is ultimately you're going to make money out of it. And that is a little bit different. There's certainly a tension. I wouldn't say there's a conflict, maybe between the perspective if you're a public sector agency, where you have to ensure value for money, but also you are aiming towards public value and the wider benefits to society, and the distribution of benefits and so on. So I think from a public agency perspective, the objectives, whilst they are concerned with value for money, are not as directly return on investment or profit driven, perhaps, although I'm also mindful of what Alan said from the Western Australian experience, where return on investment actually is one of the metrics of how you measure the success or not of an innovation proposal. So I think that's one comment. I think the other thing I was just thinking about, actually I was going to ask a question about it. Because the other thing that kind of, the phrase that also comes up with innovation is thinking outside of the box. Or if you're being really radical, there is no box. And to some extent, or this is a question back to, again, with the perspective of a public agency being the safeguarder of public funds and use of taxpayers' money, etc. To what extent, and again, maybe with the experience that Anne-Severin or Alan have provided, by trying to institutionalize the process of innovation, because to some extent you have to, does that actually limit the extent to which you can think outside of the box? And for the really kind of way out, far out innovations, is that more private sector where they're basically playing with their own money rather than playing with taxpayers' money? So in other words, is there a limit, is there more of a limit to which the public sector can innovate compared to the private sector? I'm not sure. I don't know the answer. I'd just be interested on the perspective for that. And does that mean that in some areas, the public sector will be second or third generation adopters of innovation rather than the originator of an innovation. That's just a couple of thoughts.
So I have 3 questions to 3 different groups. The first question is to ladies about BIM. So what do you think, how many dimensions finally they will be considering the BIM modeling or BIM management planning, like X, Y, Z, time, and cost? Yeah. That's it?
No. No. Also, it can be other things, items that should be considered during a design process. But I think that the most important thing is to change your mindset, to be open to standardization. But standardization, I mean open to be put into some frames of procedures. Because if you are not detailed, if you are not detailed person, it will be hard for you to find yourself in this environment. I observed during 18 years of my work when you know, new people come to work. And each year, these students, which graduated from technical universities, started working, and they were less detailed, less open to be put into some frames than it was, for example, 15 years ago. Sometimes now I find in files layers which are called, let's say, George, John, or something like this. Not, for example, I don't know, wearing course, curb, or other elements. So, you know, I think that it should be done during the university, just to teach these young people to be engineers.
Okay, thank you. So the second question is to the director, Szymon Piechowiak. It is, how much afraid are we to be innovative in General Directorate? Are we afraid, or if not, or if yes, how much afraid we are, and why?
It's not an easy question, because as the civil servants, we are afraid of innovations because of the rules, because of the law, because of the responsibility that we can face if something goes wrong with the innovation. So this is the problem when it comes to public administrations. We are afraid of something which is not standard, which is not just write down on the paper, and we used to stick to this procedure, material, etc., etc. In the General Directorate, we tried at least to show that we would like to be innovative, to take the first step. The example was the RID #1. Now we would like to introduce RID #2 with totally different subjects we would like to analyze. Of course, we also showed that it's not only a competition or a call just to be, you know, open, but we really introduce the effects and outcomes of the project. So also our procedures led the contractors to propose some new approach, for example, from use of material for designing, etc. Of course, we are not Tesla or Apple to be #1 innovative company or institution in the country, but we are showing that it is possible even on the level of public administration. It's not easy because of the mindset we talk about, because it's more comfortable to just stick to the traditional approach, let's say. So we at least are trying to be innovative, and we are showing that it is possible.
So on a first view, public body is in a contradiction to the innovation, but on a second view, can be really innovative, right? If it is careful.
it can be innovative. It can be because nobody said it cannot. But it's easier and more comfortable for civil servant to wait with the innovations.
I have a third question, but before I will ask, please go ahead with yours. Did you raise your hand? Okay, good. Go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment. Yeah, public agencies, maybe you don't have to be, well, you can't be Tesla or you can't be Apple, and maybe come up with some really crazy ideas, but you do need to know what Tesla and Apple maybe are doing, and then maybe thinking ahead to say, okay, second, third generation of this crazy idea, could it actually be applicable? So it's probably more, it comes back to maybe public agencies will not be doing it, but they need to know what the stakeholder landscape is and who is doing it and what the applicability of what they are doing might be at the point of the kind of the technology curve, where the second or the third generation applications may come.
I think, Jonathan, if I can add in there, it's Alan here. There's also the possibility for public agencies to provide seed and feasibility funding as well. And that can sometimes be a launch pad for something that wouldn't otherwise exist.
So, you're done? Okay, it looks like we have two more on chat. Two more comments on chat.
That was me asking about our boards.
May I?
We need to give them some space, some time, and to make sure they have a trigger to generate ideas. And as said before, new people come to work and sometimes they're already fixed from the first day because they have this new job and they want to do it very good. They want to walk in line. But we have a program with trainees where we don't give them a fixed job to start. We give them some time, 3 times 6 months, to taste from different jobs. So they do not really have responsibility from the first moment. And then you see that those new people, they become very creative and they make links between different teams, different people. And due to this cooperation inside the organization, we got some new ideas because those people, they start asking questions. Some people, they, like said before, they stopped asking questions, but when you put those new people coming from college, coming from university in this position as a trainee, they again start asking questions, and out of those questions and out of the answers of employees, new ideas pop up. So I think it's a possibility, but you have this mindset which should be right, and you have to give people space and time. And like Jonathan said, we can't do it alone in the public sector. We also need the private sector. When we give these trainees the possibility to cooperate with private enterprises, we see that in this, I call it ecosystem, with the different partners, even more ideas and real possibilities come up. So we can do things, make things, and try things out. And then I agree with Alan, you also have to give some space to make mistakes. Don't just jump when they try something and it goes wrong, because then everything blocks again and they become fixed like they were before. So I really agree with everything what's said here.
Thank you very much.
The only other point that I would make is that I think it's important to have an advocate within the business as well.
Indeed.
It looks like we have 2 more comments on chat, maybe. No? Okay, so my last question is to Patrick, but I'm not sure if he's still with us.
No, he had to leave early.
Okay, so I will not ask the third question. It's better for everyone. Okay, so I think, okay, sure.
I want to ask you, Mr. Professor, because in Poland we used to say like a potrzeba matko wynalazku, which means like the need is the mother of innovation. I want to ask if the Polish university is giving to the students the need, so they will innovate something. Because I remember when I was studying in Edinburgh in Scotland, we had to for just doing the design or something like a beam or slope, for just doing the calculation was like only 40% of the goal. For the rest was the innovation, to spreadsheet or something like that. So I want to ask if the Polish universities are doing something like this.
Well, that's a bit of provoking question, because if you are not give enough tools to students, they have to be innovative to develop their own students, right? So that's why I'm saying it's a little bit provocative question. And although you should teach the student the software, but software can change, right? So what for to teach the software? So there is always a big discussion between the future employee and the academia if we should provide the ready for use student or the student with a big horizons, which is completely useful at the market at the beginning, right? Which can be innovative and can be, it's really plastic and can learn a lot of things during the first few months. So, well, that's not easy question. I think we should go somewhere in the middle, right? So giving but as you asked at the beginning, or as you mentioned at the beginning, the need is the mother of the development. In general, and I was also trying to cover this in my presentation, I think it's not a good idea if the university will determine what should be developed. That should come from the industry, because industry should really know better what they really need. Or the public sector, maybe. But for sure not the university. University may help to solve the problem, but not to generate the problem. Can help to try to summarize what the problem really is, but doesn't have the whole picture of what's really going on.
We have Susanna as a question.
Okay. My question goes to Ellen. Ellen, I'm interested in your innovation and research team. Do they have other responsibilities besides the pilots and the interventions that you're doing? Or are they only dedicated to innovation and research? And then one last one is, you spoke about return on investment. Do you sometimes find that ROI can be a distraction, particularly during the decision-making process? For example, how do you quantitatively define social benefit, for example? Yeah, just those two. Thank you.
Sure. So in terms of the team, there are 2 people. One person is full-time, and the second person is the leader, and they just have a management or oversight role. So in that sense, the work is done within the business itself. All my team is doing is coordinating the activities and driving the process and continuing to promote a culture of innovation. In answer to your second question, the return on investment for many of these projects is incredibly difficult to determine. and often the results are quite ridiculous. So we will tend to meet with the subject matter experts to try to determine what might be a realistic return on investment. At no point does the ROI impact on whether or not we will proceed with the idea if it has the support of the business, the panel, and corporate executive. Because we're never sure if the project will succeed or fail. I hope that answers your questions.
Alan, thank you. Susan? So in the interest of time and seeing that it's already 5 o'clock, we'll move into wrapping up. And but I want to wrap up with a question that Jonathan just asked me, and it's something really a little bit of a lesson learned, and then I will turn it over to Jose Manuel Blanco Secara, who's going to help us with the conclusions for today. And Jonathan said, well, how do public agencies institutionalize innovation in a way which doesn't kill creativity and out-of-the-box thinking? And we're not going to answer it now because this is the type of philosophical question that could take us really late into the evening in trying to do that. But it's a question for people to ponder as transport agencies and public agencies, that sometimes we create so much red tape about all of our programs that we really stifle creativity and innovation. So, allow people to be free thinkers and to be creative. So with that, I want to thank everybody here and all of our presenters for today, and turn it over to Jose Manuel.
Well, thank you very much. Well, it's a challenge to present conclusion of so many information in these 3 hours. But let me say first that this workshop is going to be recorded. It's going to be uploaded in the website of PIARC, in the YouTube channel. And this is important because many people come from countries who are starting to think of innovation or introducing innovation. In this workshop, we have provided all the presenters a very wide overview, a perspective of all the steps of innovation. So from the fundamentals, from the general strategy, from the actors who are relevant, who are very specific methods or application of this innovation, and also how innovating in the way of innovation. So how to think about it, how to help your people. Some important ideas for me, the first one is that we have recognized the importance of innovation, of course, and with different words. Most of the presenters have said that staying the same is no longer an option. It's important not only innovate, but also capture and document and disseminate. It's essential to survive. We need transportation to be relevant in the future. Innovation is the wind that is moving us to the future. And if we go with this, in the sense of this wind, and we know how to use it in an intelligent way, we'll continue being relevant for what? For what is another word that during many presentations we have used, value, created value. So trying to provide a thread of all this wonderful presentation, I can say in a few words that, well, the fundamentals are clear. Jonathan Speed and Marfagan have explained them, how the challenge that we have, the process that we have continued, what is innovation, how can we study them, how can we observe the innovation, from doing the same, for example, doing the same thing a little bit better to doing things which make the old things obsolete. But this process, this long process from the idea to deliver the public value that Mark Fagan has explained how to apply these good ideas, through the architect, to the pilot, to scale, to improve. In each goal, you are looking for improving the value that you serve to the city, to your community. Well, then after these fundamentals, the problem is what to do. I've seen that, for example, Poland has clear ideas about what to do. We have decided the areas and the fields. Okay, that's good. And so we are working on it, and we put money on this. And Magdalena, and excuse me a moment because I'm very difficult with the names, Magdalena and Margoracha and Marta, they have explained, well, you both, the specific application through BIM and how, through how you have been talking with people, again, people. And Marta has explained the whole research program, how it's defined. But this is, we have to add this, what Alan and Severin has said regarding the making easy these groups of people who help all the organization to disseminate the innovation and to make easy. Well, all of them, all these organizations, including the Spanish organization, Traffic and Alud, are always looking the same, are trying to capture innovation and to provide to the society. But what happens that you are working with your people? So something that in the last question and answer and during the intervention is also important to have in mind is that you need to recruit people and even to interest to the university, students come with us. The future is innovation. The only way to be relevant in the future is innovation. Innovation must be something across all the organization. We can discuss if must be concentrated in one department, or perhaps one department is just looking at all the rest of the organization, and then each branch of the organization is developing the innovation. We have talked about innovation coming from top to down, from down to down. Well, the way of the innovation is not closed. I mean, it's not completely designed. There are a lot of ways innovating in the innovation, and I think that this workshop is a magnificent example. And let me say, for ending my words, that, excuse me, yes, innovation means change. Change means not only impact the society, but only into our organization, and that's something that we all also have to have in mind. So I think it's very important, and some speakers have talked about it, to have teams that make it easy. And well, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the summary. Thank you very much, all the TC members, all our speakers today. Thank you for the discussion, all the questions and answers. Thank you to the translators for the great job, and all the people who contributed that this workshop can happen today. I hope that one of the outcomes, at least, will be that my organization, the General Directorate for National Roads and Motorways, will be more open-minded and more brave when it comes to introducing innovations, and that this will be the result, because I will go with all these presentations to people who make decisions when it comes to innovations. It's not me. So thank you very much one more time.